Next up, we have Vineet, who is the principal scientist at Fintech, who will be speaking on DeDi and verifiable credentials in financial services. He'll dive into how decentralized identity and verifiable credentials are reshaping trust and compliance in the financial ecosystem. Please welcome Vineet.
Uh, Hi, so I'm Vineet. I'm the principal scientist at Fintech Labs. I also head the engineering there. Fintech comes under Network for Humanity. So if you were present at Pramod's fire chat, he mentioned like under NFH we have two uh, broad visions. One is executed via Fintech, and the other is via backend. So at Fintech, what we want to enable is we have two broad goals. One is from an end user perspective, we want to give them unified representation of their assets on a private ledger, and not just have unified representation of these assets. As Pramod said, we want to enable transactability, because that's essentially what the goal should be for an end user. That opens up a lot of functionality for the end user. And the transactability should be in a secure, private, etc. So we have heard a lot of that in today's talks. The second bit is from the issuance perspective. We also want to enable for any issuer to allow issuance of the asset on the chain of their choice, on multiple chains, if possible, in a unified manner and in a secure manner. Very early on, when we were trying to think through some of the use cases that we wanted to enable as part of Fintech, we very quickly realized that even before transactability, we have to solve a fundamental problem, and we have touched upon it, that how do two parties that are trying to transact establish trust? And we have seen this play out in the sense that you will have verifiable credentials and you can share credentials, but that's a slightly longer journey. So most often verifiable credentials are where a user owns this. It might be private to a user, and then you want to secretly or privately share certain kinds of certain parts of the information from the credential. But most often what happens is, if you look in the financial sector, the initial KYC, the initial onboarding happens using public information that is actually publicly known. But this takes too much of time, because the information that exists to perform these checks are in disparate areas of the web, and I'll go over it. And that essentially means that there are monetary implications for the businesses that are trying to transact with each other. And the decentralized directory protocol, the open source decentralized directory protocol, tries to address this, and it tries to address in a very seamless fashion. It doesn't try to change the existing infrastructure that exists today. So I will today talk about how DeDi, in short, will envisions itself to change how verification will work in the current setup of between financial institutions. So before that, let me talk about how what are the three important checks or functional goals that are involved in the when you are exchanging information. So if you think about at a fundamental level, most often in the initial phase, while you're trying to establish trust, two entities are usually sharing some kind of a publicly certified information. It could be a license, it could be just some kind of identifier that they know the other party should know. And once the entities sort of receive this certified information, they would do they have three functional goals. The first is to check the integrity of this document. In other words, what it means is that this document is not forged. And we all know that it's like in the digital world, this can be done using digital signatures. In the physical world, humanity has developed a lot of techniques over the past years where they check it via stamps, they check it via physical signatures, so on and so forth. But let's stick to the digital world. In the digital world, it would mean that you trust you have some trusted public key infrastructure using which you will basically fetch the public key of an issuing authority and check the integrity of the document. For validity and authenticity, actually there is no unified method that exists even in the digital world today. Uh, Typically, the document that would be issued would have some kind of an expiry date. And if it does not have an expiry date, what it would mean is that the compliance officer that is actually checking would have back and forth rounds or rounds of interaction with the issuing authority to check whether the document is valid or not. That means it's whether it has been revoked before. And authenticity just means that you need, so especially in cross-border, the entity that's trying to verify also needs to verify whether the issuing entity, the entity that has actually issued the credentials, has the right to issue those credentials. So it's essentially just checking the legitimacy of the source. So in essence, if you look at financial institutions, when they are trying to interact with each other, they could be a bank, it could be an NBFC, it could be a fintech, they would need to know who they are transacting with. That's the first step that they would want. And the information that is there to check this already exists out there. It could be a PDF doc. It could be a Excel sheet that exists in an online registry. It could be a database that is you're giving access to using an API, and so on. Even if you have API access, most often what happens is that each platform or each issuing authority is providing this API access through specific integrations. And because of if you have ever done integration, integrating with different platforms are difficult and it's a painful process. So, and you will typically have like this bilateral agreements of server to server integration, which you typically don't want. And you might be wondering that, this information that I'm talking about, sometimes it could be private, but actually what happens is most of this information I want to emphasize that is actually publicly available information that you're trying to verify. For example, think of a bank in a cross-border transaction trying to check the license of a fintech that it's trying to interact with. Now it would try to source this license from some registry. Then it would try to check whether the signature on the license is correct. And for actually checking the signature, it would try to fetch a public key from some kind of issuing registry. And then it has to finally check whether this document has been revoked or not. So it has to check the negative list. So typically you will have this flow that you have membership verification. So you would verify that this is correct, then you'll have public key discovery, and then you have negative list. So I hope I've conveyed to you that just the verification bit with public information is a very messy process today. And what it actually entails is that this process looks like this today. That if a bank A is trying to check whether just that a fintech is satisfying its compliance requirements with public information, it has to go through so many loops. And because it has to go through so many loops, it has real world impact, it has monetary impact. So what our initial assessment was that today, just the initial verification for any kind of transactability, it sits in 3 phases. One is the archaic system, which is manual but offline, where you have registers which are basically published offline. You have physical copies, you go fetch the PDF, you spreadsheet, you manually verify. Finally, you have digital, so you would be emailed like the PDF, or you will be emailed the spreadsheet, and then you'll sit manually and check, and then you'll have like these rounds of interaction. It's very fun to watch. And then you have digital but not interoperable. So what I mean by that, it's like you will have custom API access. So you would be like, okay, if I want to interact with this party, where are you getting this licenses from? Let me do a custom integration. And if the volume of the transactions are more, they will do a custom integration. But what it means is that onboarding is a very big pain, and it actually has high costs associated with it. So the motivation to actually go through all of this is to emphasize that this process today that exists is not scalable. And this is where the decentralized directory protocol comes in. our vision is to not change the existing infrastructure. We want to, this protocol is like a thin wrapper on the existing infrastructure. It can take in any registry. It can take any registry and it can expose it using APIs and make it machine readable and interoperable. This is like the two most important considerations that DeDi had, that it should be easy to use. So you should have very little onboarding friction. And second, it should be interoperable, because it's very important from a unified experience that the registry should be interoperable. So just to summarize, essentially, that the DeDi protocol, what it enables is that any registry can be accessed by any relying party. So it's open. The information is open, and we are only targeting open information. I'll come to the privacy bit later on. The second is that you will enable machine-readable API access, and I'll come to the API. The API specification is also very simple. What it means is that you can, because it is, so we sort of post a data proof on the chain. So whenever like the record is updated, you can sort of post a proof, because of which you will have provenance and verifiability of records. And we support multiple data standards. So you can get a PDF, you can get like a registry, you can get your Excel sheets, anything. And you can embed trust over and over again. So like tomorrow, a central bank can come push the registry, then somebody else can ascertain that this data is correct. So there are ways to do this. That's essentially embedded within the scope of the DeDi protocol. So how can an entity actually come and work with DeDi and ensure that its registries are public and interoperable? So let's take an example. So let's say it's a central bank. They can come and claim a namespace within the DeDi protocol. Once it claims the namespace, it can actually just upload registries under this namespace. And then the records are essentially individual records within the registry. And now all the records are now basically give you all these properties instantly. So and the protocol itself is very simple. So we spent a lot of time thinking as to what should be the set of APIs that are simple enough that can enable all kinds of functional flows that we are interested in. And we just narrowed down upon 3 APIs. These are RESTful and standardized. So first is the DeDi/lookup. The second is DeDi/query. And the third is DeDi/version. So within lookup, you can query namespace. You can query within namespace, you can query the registry, and you'll get a record, like the metadata for respective namespace or a registry. And for making specific queries into the records, you just do a /DeDi/query. And the version is essentially for any record or any registry, you can check back all the version history of any record. I want to emphasize that the simplicity of the APIs and the requirement that we don't have to change the existing infrastructure was like a necessity key for us, so that the user onboarding is almost frictionless for us. So let's look at the after DeDi flow. So I showed you like the messy flow. The after DeDi flow looks like this. Now, if a bank A has to verify the legitimacy of a fintech, it has just 3 APIs. Because it has 3 APIs, it can make interoperable calls. It can go check the license registry, it can check the public key registry, it can do the revocation registry, all through using these APIs. And it makes the information, because it's standardized, interoperable. So now that I explained you the DeDi protocol, under Network for Humanities, which is a non-profit, we offer this service called DeDi.global. The DeDi.global is an instantiation of the open source DeDi protocol. It comes with some additional services. So onboarding is very simple. You just log in and you can just add your registry. You can claim a namespace, you can add your registry. And then it immediately becomes interoperable with any registry that already exists within the DeDi.global or the DeDi.protocol. And there is no cost associated with it. It's almost like negligible cost. So if you are a registry owner, if you have some contacts within banks, or if you think you need to publish a registry, you can use the DD.global service. You can claim your namespace. You can just publish your first directory. And if you are a verifier, you are an entity that requires compliance checks or uses registry services frequently, you can adopt the DD protocol and you can start just doing lookup and querying public records. Please feel free to reach out to the team. That's it. Thank you. Yeah, so just one final bit. So I was talking about open registries. You can do the same thing with private registries. So, but you can't host it within DD.global, but you can adopt the protocol. Yes?
Yeah, I'm curious. So first off, this is only for public information. So like it wouldn't be for my status as like a citizen or resident of somewhere. It would only be for like this is a public company.
Yes, this is a public company.
Okay, and where is all of this stored?
So within DD, so since your registry is public, so most of this, so for example, just think about area codes, or you have certain bank information that is publicly available. You can, today, for example, in India, if I have to search like an IFSC code of a bank, you go search it on Google, and you will get it publicly.
No, but so your DD protocol.
Yes.
If I query DD for exactly that information, where is the back end? Where is it?
So good question. So DD protocol is just a specification. If you are you have a registry that you are hosting somewhere, you just have to build the API endpoints, or you could come in DD.global. It's a cloud service. You just upload your registry. The registry will sit within the cloud, and the API endpoints are automatically exposed.
Okay, so if I come along now, and
Yes.
let's say that, for example, Canada is not part of this registry, and I plant in there something that says, oh, for Canadian social insurance numbers, come and see my namespace.
Okay.
And I have a poison namespace that I'm using to then defraud people in Africa or something like that. How do you deal with that?
So that's a very good question. So so within the DD protocol, when you claim a namespace, there is a legality aspect to it. When you claim a namespace, you're claiming ownership over it. So there is, you do some checks basically. So there is a compliance team that does a check whether you are allowed to publish that registry, whether you have the authority to publish that registry. You're claiming ownership over the issuance of the records and making it public. Does that answer you? So
So basically, if I'm understanding correctly,
Yes.
it's stored and validated by you as the person running DD.
No. Yeah, so the verification is not verified by us. So the verification.
No, but you're verifying the bodies, though. You're verifying who can put in this. Because I mean, if I come in and say I'm providing social insurance numbers,
Yes.
you're verifying that I am the right person to issue social insurance numbers.
I would say that it's so it's not so for example if you have social insurance numbers which cannot be made public, yes, we will not allow it. That's correct. The bit about making publicly available information, that would usually be like an interaction with the team that sort of sits and decides whether you can make it public or not. Yes.
Okay, so this is essentially you've created a centralized verification service.
This is no. So
Okay.
I would say on publicly available information. So the centralized bit is a very it's a heavy term. So the information that sits within the registry is public already. There's no authority over it.
There's no authority of it, then what value is it to me as somebody relying on it? I mean, if somebody could fraudulently put in anything,
No. So
then what's the point of this?
No. If you're basically having like a public key registry, for example, you would have like who is issuing the public key. So you would have like a body that is basically saying that I can issue the public keys and I will host it and I can query it basically.
Okay, maybe we can take this up
Yeah,
offline,
we can
but
take
it seems like you have two opposing goals that you cannot simultaneously meet, but we can discuss offline.
Sure, yeah.
Any other questions for Vineet? I think we are good. Thank you, Vineet,
Thank you.
for your amazing session.